Hey, just going to be doing a quick review of Notebook for Golf Clash. So this is only for Android devices. You'll find a couple of similar ones on iOS. As far as I know, they all work more or less the same way, but there were a couple available for Android. After reading some of the reviews, I decided to go with Notebook for Golf Clash. So far, I've been really happy with it, and just a few other members of my clan have been asking a lot of questions about it, so I figured I would just put together a quick video to cover some of the features and maybe do a quick gameplay using the Notebook instead of the typical wind charts. So just starting off, we're within the application, so this is what you'll see when you open the app on your phone. Just a few things to choose from. The help section, pretty straightforward. You'll just get an FAQ put together by the developer. The settings, which we'll take a quick look at in a second, but first we're just going to look at the bag setup. So very important, before you start using this in-game, you'll want to head into the bag setup, and at the very least set up the clubs that you use for your general tour play. So the way that works, going through each of your club types, starting with your drivers, you just click on the club that you're going to use, double tap it, and you'll get a drop down with all the different levels. So you really probably should configure this for all of the clubs that you currently have, because if you ever need to switch to one in-game, that's only going to work if you've configured the level for it correctly. Otherwise, if there is an accuracy difference, the numbers that the app gives you is going to be off. So I've done here the Apocalypse, which is what I use 99% of the time. I also configured the Rocket and the Quarterback that I was using in the last tournament. So you do that at least for your main bag. The other thing the app lets you do is add multiple bags. So I haven't done that yet, but you can just click the add button, give your bag a new name, and you can actually set up multiple configurations if you want to easily be able to switch back and forth in games, so you're not constantly coming back into the app to change your defaults. So once you've configured your bag, you'll probably want to tweak a couple of other settings. Really, the only thing that you can tweak or will want to tweak has to do with the screen grid. Some people might choose not to use the grid. I would highly recommend it just for the accuracy it's going to give you when you make your wind adjustments, and I'll actually enable that in just a second to show you guys what I'm talking about. There it is, actually there enabled. So that red line that you see there across the bottom of my screen is the grid. And all that's going to do is when you're making the wind adjustments, again, I'll show you this when we get to the demo in game, but you're going to line this up with the center of your target, and that's going to allow you to really accurately make your wind adjustment. So if you're moving 3 rings, for example, you would just adjust until this red line is touching the edge of the third ring, as opposed to just trying to estimate based on some sort of visual cue, which is kind of difficult unless you're really looking at the green, and even then the colors that you're using will kind of blend over top of it and make it difficult. So this line is really helpful for that. Coming back into the settings, the settings here are going to let you change both the position, the alignment, and how many lines you're getting across the screen. So there's 2 here, one that they call the wind alignment line, which is a vertical line. I don't know why they used a vertical as the wind alignment, because typically, at least when I'm making my adjustments, I'll rotate the screen so that I'm either adjusting up or down. I never do a right to left adjustment. So I keep that one disabled, but if you did want to use it, you can just keep that enabled. You can change the exact position of it with this slider here, and then the extent is just going to adjust the top and the bottom position of that line, so you can make it smaller or larger. Similar with the center alignment line, you can change the extent as well. Obviously, being the center alignment, you cannot change the positioning of that one. This one I would recommend keeping disabled, again, unless you're going to be doing a left to right adjustment and you prefer the center. The reason I don't like it is it goes right over the middle of the perfect box when you are lining up your shot, which I just found kind of annoying. I don't know if it was just me or if I had to get used to it, but I was hitting a lot of great shots just because that line down the middle of the screen was really throwing me off when I was trying to time the perfect shots. So I just have this horizontal alignment. I have it going all the way across the screen, but again, for this one, you could choose just to have a little minimalist line in the middle if you so choose, but I just leave it all the way across. It doesn't really bug me down there when I'm doing most of my shot stuff and adjustments. So going back in, you may have seen this earlier, but the wind assist, that's just what you're going to click when you want to launch the overlay. So what that does is it puts this little green notebook thing on the left side of your screen. And then wherever you are when you're in Golf Clash or really anywhere else, but you won't use it anywhere other than Golf Clash, you can just click on that to expand it. And I'll quickly walk through everything that we're showing there. So first thing you're going to do, this is probably before you get into the game, especially if you're playing tour play and you're always using the same ball. Like if you're on Tour 11 or Tour 12, you're always using a Kingmaker or a Titan, you'll probably just have this stuck on Power 3. But if you're doing a tournament, again, you'll probably know what ball you're going to use in advance. And you just want to come in here beforehand and make a selection for the power ball that you're going to be using. Because obviously the wind figures will change for max distance depending on the selection that you make there. And one thing that's really important to note for a lot of these, you want to make as many selections before your shot or even before the game as possible. Because one of the things with this app compared to using the standard wind charts, you'll notice your time goes by a lot faster. Because there is always some manual entry that you have to make into this app, it's going to chew up a little bit of your time. And especially with the first couple of games, you're going to find that you're coming really, really close to running out of time. As you get used to it and get used to what you have to do to manage your time a bit better, that's not going to be a problem. Yeah, you always want to get as much data in here ahead of time, and the Powerball is probably the easiest one to do. So right below that is going to be the height adjustment. So this, if you know the hole really, really well, you might make ahead of time knowing if there is a height adjustment for the first shot. But generally, this is something you're going to make on a shot-by-shot basis. So if your shot is downhill, for example, and you know you were going to be adding roughly 10% to your shot, 10% wind to your shot for downhill adjustment, you just click on that or press on that. And then you're going to have the option. You can see the nice little handy icons here for downhill on the right, uphill on the left, just in case you're ever confused about which side you're supposed to be using for what type of shot. But in my example, downhill, I would just hit this plus, add 10%, and you'll see on the left side, it'll show that it's adding 10% to my wind adjustment. You can do 20, you can subtract. So really every time you push one of these, it's just changing that figure on the left-hand side. And of course, you can always just close it, open it back up to change it between shots. So we'll leave that at plus 10%. So next is the club selection. Handily, it does default to your driver, but if you click on that, it will show you all of the clubs in your currently selected bag. So after your first drive, for example, what you're going to want to do is try and estimate what club it is you're going to be using for your next shot. Depending on the course that you're doing, you probably know ahead of time. For example, if the second shot is always a wood shot or always a long iron shot, you can switch to these ahead of your shot just to save yourself a little bit of time. And finally, this is where you put in the wind adjustment. So there's actually, you can't see from my screen here, but there's two places you can click into this next menu where you see the wind adjustments. So first is on where it says 0.0 miles per hour. You can click on there. That's where you're going to be entering the actual wind. So typically what I'll do is as the map is loading or as my opponent is shooting, I have this open ready to enter the wind value for my next shot. Just to, again, save a bunch of time. You don't want to be having to press on a bunch of things unnecessarily that you know you're going to have to do before your shot. So I have this open and ready to go, and as soon as it says my shot, I look up to the top left for my wind adjustment, and I enter it in here. And the way it works is it will always make you enter at least 2 decimal values. So if you have, for example, a 9.3 mile per hour wind, I just hit the 9, the 3, and hit OK. And it'll save that, and it'll show me how many rings I have to adjust down below for that type of wind, of course, adding 10% with a Power 3 ball. So for max distance, it says I have to adjust 7.3 rings, minimum 5.5. If I click down below here, if you're already using the wind adjustments, you probably notice that obviously not all of your shots are exactly max, exactly mid, exactly min. So if you ever end up with a shot that's 70% distance roughly, for example, you probably just estimate a value in your head real quick between the max and the mid distance. What this lets you do is if I click into that chart, it gives me a slider. So after I'm done adjusting my club back and forth to gauge the percentage of distance that I'm using, if I see that it's roughly 30% of the club's distance, I would just drag this ball down to roughly 1/3 of the length and then click again to close it. And the mid value will change based on how far I've changed that slider. So you can see it's a little bit closer to the min distance than the max, based on the fact that I'm about 30% in between. So it'll tell you need to move exactly 6.2 rings. This is one of those things where it does chew up a little bit of time, especially if you're already adjusting your max and min. I do recommend using it and getting the most accurate value, but just keep in mind if you are using this, you are going to be a little bit short on time. So do exercise a bit of caution with that. Should turn off my Discord replies here. All right, so lastly on these little 3 dots at the bottom, we have a few more adjustments. One is to turn the grid lines on or off. The other is to change your default bag. So if you did have more than one, you could quickly flip through that. There's 2 more. So one is the rotation, your phone rotation. So what that's going to do is if I flip my phone sideways, it's going to reorient the screen. So that's for people who have narrow phones who can't use max curl adjustment. You could use that to help with curling your shots more than your phone would allow. It's a nice little handy feature. You can download other software that does that a little bit better and gives you more options, but pretty handy if you don't feel like having 2 overlay apps running at the same time. And then the next one is disable chat. So all this does, and I'll click on it to show you, but it just kind of puts a big ugly box over top some of the corners, and you have different options for whether you want to block only the left side chat, the right side chat, or both. So if you're coming against an emoji spammer, or you just want to have this always disabled, you can put that up. Personally, I find it just looks ugly and gets in the way, so I don't use it. But there for those who are constantly getting harassed by emoji spammers. All right, so, just one other thing to notice, this does take up a little bit of space. It won't actually get in the way of what you're doing in game, but if you do want to get rid of it, all you have to do is hold your finger inside the app and then swipe in either direction, up or down, and it'll compress it, and it'll still save your win values, luckily. All you have to do again to open it is, again, click on that, and then again, swipe in any direction to open or close. It's pretty smooth how that works. I've never really run into an issue with trying to minimize that out of the way when I need to. So I'm going to clear the win selection and actually go into a game real quick, just so we can demo this in action and how it should work. So again, since the game is starting, I'm just going to have the win chart already open, ready to plug in the win speed if it is in fact my turn. Yes, it is my turn. So that's 7.3, and I'm also, I can clear that, also going to have to get rid of the downhill adjustment for this shot. So you can see there it's telling me I need to adjust for 5.2 rings. So what I'm going to do is orient it so that my needle is facing directly north, put the grid line right in the middle of my target, and then bring it down so it's touching the edge of the white. So that's 5 rings, and then, this you don't have to use the grid line for, but just do another 0.2 rings or so. Take our shot, and that should land nice in the middle of that fairway. Awesome. So my next shot I'm pretty sure is going to be a wood shot, so I'm just going to switch to that ahead of time, unless I have some like crazy tailwind. Maybe that'll turn into a long iron. So again, I'd always recommend putting that in ahead of time if you have the chance, or if you sort of roughly know what your club distance is going to be. That might actually be a long iron. It's going to be pretty close, I think. So again, if you are coming from wind charts, it is going to take a few games to get used to doing this. There was a few shots when I first started using it that I just forgot to enter the wind when I was taking a new shot, so my numbers were completely off. So yeah, it'll take a few games. You'll notice at first too, you're constantly running your clock all the way down, but after a while, you'll love the app, and you'll be throwing those wind charts away or whatever you're currently using in favor of it. So my opponent is in the bunker. We're going to open this back up and get ready. So that's 8.8, and it is a wood shot, but it's basically mid-distance. And actually, because of the tailwind, I'm going to switch to my Saturn. Sort of an awkward between club shot here. So 8.8 with my Saturn is going to be 4.6 rings. That's basically in the middle of the white. So we just adjust that to the lines. Just put in the middle of the white. I didn't really aim for like a pocket on that one, just again because I'm running a little bit low on time, but also because of the tailwind making it awkward. Oh, and look. So you see there, you can get you'll always get it pretty close with these adjustments, especially with that red line. I mean, that was straight tailwind, so it was kind of easy to get it within that with a perfect shot. But one of the things you'll notice using that the grid lines for your adjustment, you're going to be getting a lot closer a lot more often if you're making the correct wind adjustments. Eyeballing it, just it's just another factor of randomness to your shot. So you'll, especially for tournaments, like you'll be draining a lot more eagles and albatrosses from distance, or at least getting to within a couple inches where you feel like you're giving yourself a chance. Oh, so my opponent rolls into the bunker. I was hoping to do a shootout, but if he doesn't save himself from the bunker, I think we've basically covered all the bases here. Pull that back. So we'll see if my opponent here is able to salvage this not so great round from the bunker. He does get a nice favorable wind. He should be able to get this as long as he hits a perfect shot. Oh, and he hits it. Alright, so we will get to show a shootout. Probably the one and only time I am not in anger over my opponent saving a terrible round with a bunker shot. So we're going to switch back to my wood club, again, just knowing that that's what's going to be used. Yeah, that's definitely the club that we're going to use here. We're shooting first again. Oh, we have a 9.5 mile an hour headwind, which might actually mean flipping over into my my driver. This one I'm actually just more concerned about getting it onto the green. So this one's a little bit downhill. I'm going to add 10%. Oops. So that's 10.7 rings. Going to be a bit quick here because we are a bit low on time. Just going to kind of ballpark that one. This one looks good. Yeah. A little bit far, but again, headwinds on this one are a little bit tricky, and if you're left of the hole, that's just going to roll all the way down, so not too disappointed with that shot. My opponent is just going to go for the bunker bump, it looks like. If he has this shot down pat, that could actually get really close as long as he, again, doesn't roll down to the left. You'll notice, though, my shot did pretty much go exactly where the ball guide was showing. I was thinking that headwind might have held it back a little bit, but more or less the ball landed exactly where we designated our landing spot. So that's really all we want out of this app. And we'll see if it's enough for a win. Yeah, looks like it. Yep. All right, so that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and just let me know in the comment section if you have any questions, anything I didn't cover, and I'll do my best to. Oh, and a Tour 11 Platinum chest to wrap up the video. Yeah, so just let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer. Thanks.